Let's do it.
You got a button for that shit, don't
Like
you?
that. The audience is going to get over my drum beats. I'm gonna have to get some new beats. Everyone, welcome. What have we got? Denym Rowan King, all the way down from the sunny coast.
Big dog.
Big dog. Advocate for justice and the community, and high-profile criminal defence lawyer, and also too, like, you best mates or good mates with one of my brothers, Denym Noke, who everyone knows and he's had many an introduction on this podcast. Welcome, everyone. That's the corniest it'll get, mate. We're past that now.
Corn's over.
How was my introduction? Was it all right?
That was a good introduction, and Denim's one of those mates that's like
Here we go.
fully
Hang on.
fully got your back, but also can stitch a brother up really, really well. And the best example of that is if you know Denym, you know he's a big dog businessman, but he gave me a call one day and he wanted me to answer some legal questions, and I was like, yeah, no worries, answer them. And he's like, oh, mate, I really want to pay you for that. And I said, oh, look, it's no dramas. He goes, oh, well, maybe some self-care. I'll get a bloke, my masseuse, to come around massage it.
Oh, here we go.
So
He's banking this one.
Like, Denym tells the masseuse, I got a single mate
Yeah.
and he's at his unit and I need you to go around and massage him, and here's a couple $100 cash. Just like make sure you really look after him.
Yeah.
He's a bit stressed. You need to relieve him.
Yeah. And so that's all the masseuse had information. So I get there and he's like, oh, mate, you know, it's your own home. You know, you can get completely naked. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'd never been naked during a massage before, and cracks out the hot rocks and whatever. And like 55 minutes of the hour was just absolutely spectacular. But there's this one point where it's like, all right, mate, now roll over. And I'm like, oh like getting really anxious. And anyway, the massage finishes and I called up Denym. I was like, mate, that was so good. Thank you so much. I need to do some more self-care. And he goes, how's the massage? I said, oh, like, mate, I've never been naked during a massage before. and he goes, what do you mean naked? And I was like, oh, well, you know, he told me to, like, it's my own home, I should get naked. And he's like, mate, I've been having this guy massage me for like 3 years and I've never been naked.
Not once.
And there was a 5 minutes there where it was got a bit aggy going. Thankfully.
Look, let's be real. It's the gayest massage you ever have for about 5 minutes.
Oh, right.
And if you can bear through the like how close he gets to your ball sack and like all up in your junk and around your cheeks and stuff like that. If
What
you
does
can
he
bear
do?
that,
What
You keep your undies on, mate. I had them off.
brother, that's what I was laughing at.
So,
This lad's like, I got my
You just got
gear
to
off
own
with
it.
old mate.
When you're that far through, mate, you just got to own it. And you just
That's
sit
it.
back, hands behind your head, and you're in. So,
My Nelson, my brother, he's the one who introduced me to this masseuse, and he said the same thing to me. He said, look, listen, I know you're not gay, but there's this guy that does massages, and you'll have a gay time for about 3 or 4 minutes while he does the cheeks. But he said, when he's not on the cheeks, it's the best massage ever. So just close your eyes and go with it.
yeah.
So I did, and then sent him around to Rowan's place, and he hoodwinked Rowan a little bit and asked him to take his undies off.
mate, it was a stitch up. He said, here's a couple $100 cash. My mate's stressed, look after him. Like, what else is he thinking?
He did his job, didn't he?
No comment.
I remember little Kevy, mate, talking about that. He goes, oh, we went to get these massages, me and my partner, and he goes, and I just couldn't do it. I just had to tell the fella to stop. He just said, like, he was just coming up and he's just like, had that voice in my ears just going, does that feel all right? Yeah. And Kev's just trying to go, yeah, and he's like, and he's just talking to Kev, and he's like, nah, look, sorry, man, I can't do this. And he just said, I just got to.
And Kev jumped up.
Can't do it. Yeah, it's all right. So, anyhow, some people can.
I've walked out on a massage before.
Yeah,
I
right.
got a little bit of junk rubbed up against my leg before, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Anyway, I let it go for a minute. I was like, dude's got a phone in his pocket or something, you know, like, I'm like, nah, something's wrong. And I kind of went like that, and I heard him go, ooh, like that. And I looked around, he's got a semi, like, while he's rubbing me and rubbing himself up against my arm.
Can you blame him, though?
I know, that's far out. So I just jumped up and went, out. like this. Old mate shat himself, and anyway he left, and I got up and walked out, and
then the
go back to
masseuse
that place.
came in.
Yeah.
Like, who was that? That's some fella, isn't he?
No, the manager came in and he said, sir, what's the matter? I'll send somebody else in. I said, nah, this dude's just been rubbing his dick up against my arm, and I'm like, that sounds so stupid. Like, I'm just gonna look. Thank you so much. I'm out of here. See you later. And I left.
It's funny, man. I actually used to be a sports masseuse for when you started.
So did I, Rowan, by the way.
Yeah, I roped him in once to a gig. But I, when you were starting that story, I thought you were gonna. I thought it was you were gonna stitch me up into that. But yeah, for maybe 5 years, I used to do it, but I never did the relaxation stuff. It was always sports, and so I feel like that was like it always sort of cut through, right? Like, as if you're a dude doing like a Swedish massage or whatever on another dude, there is that
Yep.
that intimacy. But when it's full sports and you're in there trying to it hurts basically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Some of the worst massages I ever had was from you.
yeah, right.
Because halfway through, we just couldn't take it serious, and you'd slap me in the face or like do something to make me feel uncomfortable.
Man, I'm so critical, man, when I go to get a massage now, like, because I did it for so long. I don't know how many asses I rubbed over that time, but I learn a lot. And when I just lay there today and someone's hooking in, I'm just like, and waste of money. And
Yep.
But anyhow, so that's where I thought you were going with that initially. But yeah, so those are the days, mate. Long gone.
Yeah, and I stitched him up proper.
I got a call once, and long story short, and it was a Hens party or something, and I don't know, Denym was in the vicinity, and I needed a couple of extra hands, literally. And I'm just like,
I literally got on my way down to see you.
oh yeah, and I'm like, bro, just come help me out with this. I'll get another table. You just got to just massage some chicks for a little while. It's all Swedish. It'll be easy. And yeah, mate, we went and they loved it. But this fella here, like, talk about work fit. It's something that I just found so easy to do. And I'm looking at Denym and he's just ripping in sweat. And he's just struggling like he's running a marathon trying to get through this. I'm like, what's the matter? And he's like, sweat dripping on him and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Not only that, but where they put us was like on the edge of the veranda, and the sun is like coming down in the afternoon and beaming down on my back, and I'm like,
Jesus.
sweat. I know, right? And I'm sweating. I sweat on the lady, like I was like drip water, like drip sweat on her, and just like rubbed it in and moved it around on her back.
Extra oil.
Yeah, I know, right?
Crazy. Yeah, what a kickoff, eh? Far out.
I got a question to kick it off.
So yeah,
I've been thinking about this on the way down.
Yeah.
So, Rowan, what's the go with the wigs?
the what?
Do you have
Wigs.
one?
Don't have a
Can
wig.
we see it?
Yeah, don't have a wig.
Is it blonde?
No. So lawyers.
the wigs, the lawyers?
Lawyers, yeah, with wigs. So there's two types of lawyer. Well, there's more than two types of lawyers.
Are they called a wig though?
Yeah. So basically, there's solicitors who are more general, and they, in the litigation process, the solicitors would do more of the face-to-face work with clients and the gathering and marshalling of all the evidence. And then you've got the barristers who are the better speakers in court. They're better at advocacy, and it's just a tradition. They wear robes and wigs, right. So I'm a solicitor. I'm what we call a solicitor advocate. So I do advocacy as well. So I'll actually represent people. I'll speak in court. There's a lot of lawyers that won't do that because they're not built that way. They're built more for around the paperwork and the idiosyncrasies of the law. But so even though I do a lot of court work, I'm not a barrister. So
Not a wig wearer.
Don't wear the wig. Yeah.
Yep.
So all barristers? Not all barristers, right? Or all barristers?
All
wear wigs
barristers,
and-
yeah. So different types of cases, you don't have to wear them.
Right.
But when you're in like a criminal trial or you're in the Supreme Court or Court of Appeal, there's rules around when you have to be presented in the full outfit. And there's been a few times where I've been in court where judges have just ripped into barristers because they've rocked up without their
Attire.
their attire, or like they have like a special little tie thing called a jabbo, and like if they don't have that on, the outfit's not complete. And like I had one judge going like, "I can't hear you. I'm not hearing your case because you're not dressed properly. Like, get out." And the guy's saying like, "I left it in the Gold Coast." He's like, "Too bad. Like, I'm not listening to your case." So
justice can get diverted, like put off.
I
Because
think
old mate doesn't have his tie.
Yeah, I think that judge was just G'ing that lawyer up because he probably didn't like the lawyer, so it was probably more a G up. Like, it was only delayed by 15 minutes, and the barrister probably just went and asked one of his mates out the corridor, "Can I borrow yours for 10 minutes or whatever?" But
Yep.
like sometimes the judges can G you up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's a tradition that's sort of like washing out over time, or is it still like adhered to and respect?
I think in all business, there's this conflict between tradition and innovation, and I think traditions are important because it reminds us where we've come from, and it reminds us of the lessons of the past, and it reminds us to respect. Like, one of the reasons I do that is because it's really formal. We're dealing with really serious stuff when we're in court. Things that can change people's lives. It could be a client going to jail for the rest of their life, or it could be someone getting acquitted when they should be in jail for the rest of their life, or it could be someone getting paid multi-million dollar payout or something. So I think there is a level of gravitas and like importance that comes with that. And if you sort of rock up in your billabong boardies and thongs, like it wouldn't sort of match the seriousness of what you're doing. So I think that's why that traditional element's important. But in all things, there's innovation and change, and those things are important. So it's just one of those things that have survived the innovation of the law, I suppose, is that tradition. And it's also a sign of like the community sees when they're walking down. You see them in Brisbane, walking across to the courthouse. You see the people in their robes and the wigs, and people stop and look, and it's that level of respect which has sort of been eroded a bit in our community.
I guess with so much innovation and change, really the tradition is the common thread. Like, it is the respect that people can show one another that they do have for the system, right?
Yes.
And because obviously we are in a day and age of innovation and evolution, everything technology, it's moving so fast and change, and it's interesting we're talking about that. And I can see why I can see why the judge ripped in. Like, because someone needs to, right? Someone needs to adhere those traditions at some level.
I think it's important. Like, you need those. Sometimes that's the way you learn too. Like, sometimes it's just someone who I reckon that judge probably had a judge rip into him when he was a barrister. So it's just passing down those lessons, and. Yeah, sometimes I think that's one of the first things to go is that, like, respect for your industry. And I mean, it's probably, working in the IT sector, it's just such a brand new sector. So they don't have as much of that tradition as something like the law where, advocates go so far back in time.
It's been there since the foundation of the country, right? I mean, the wigs come from where? They're like...
the English system.
Yeah.
When they came out and planted that flag, we sort of adopted English law, and then you've got the hundreds of years before that of advocates in the court system in the UK. So that's sort of the sort of genesis of the wigs. I think they also provide a level of, I think that one of the origins of it too is, like, for the judges, it provides a level of anonymity, I suppose. So if you're the person sending someone to jail for 25 years, you got the wig on, you're not as obvious when you're in the queue at Woolies, because at the end of the day, judges have to go shopping and get their hair cut.
Yeah, right.
It just sort of reminds me, like my brother is a federal copper, and I went to the hairdresser with him one Thursday night. We went late night shopping, and, we're at the barber's, and this dude's got a pair of scissors right next to his neck. He's like, "Mate, I've seen you somewhere." My brother's like, "Oh, I got one of those faces, "Oh no, I know you. You're familiar." And he goes, "No, mate, I'm just, I play rugby." "You do play rugby?" He's like, My brother's like, I like kebabs. You go to the kebab shop? Oh, yeah, maybe I've seen you at the kebab shop. And then we get out. My brother's like, I pinched that guy like 6 weeks ago. So, like this guy's got a pair of scissors right next to his neck. I know you from somewhere. So, like, I suppose it provides that level of anonymity for, people that are making really important decisions in our community too. They're
handing down, sentencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, prosecuting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyone that makes a decision these days, anyone that's one of the things. It's still one of the only professions where decisions are made. Like everyone can hedge and sit on the fence, like politicians and stuff like that. But our judges can't. They have to make a decision, a decisive decision, and sometimes it's unpopular. And
sometimes it's final too, though, isn't it? It's like the
That's
consequences of the decisions they're making can determine someone's life,
absolutely,
and future.
Yeah, I remember the first time I was in court when someone was sentenced to life imprisonment, and I just remember how, grave that was. I was sitting in court, and the judge says, you've been convicted of this murder. What you did was gutless and heartless, and you've caused significant consequences. And there's only one penalty according to law I can give you. That's life imprisonment. Adjourn the court, and that was it. Judge stood up and walked out, and I just remember, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. But I just remember this kid was like 23, 24. And the judge says, there's only one penalty, I'm going to give you life imprisonment, adjourn the court, stands up and walks out, and then the door slams behind the judge, and that's it. That kid's in jail for the rest of his life, So
wow.
They make difficult decisions and thankless decisions, and it's very easy for the people in the community to sit and criticise them. But, it's still one profession where you can make a decision and, you're paid to make decisions, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how they manage that after hours. Like, imagine laying in bed going, oh, fuck, was that right? Or
how many OP rums do they have before bed?
Yeah.
Shit, that was do you know what?
Yeah, it's something that I deal with regularly. I've been walked out of court and been spat at. I've done some high-profile cases where, I was involved in this murder case in North Queensland, and the bloke went missing, and his body was never, and still has never been recovered. And I remember walking out of court and people yelling at me, how do you sleep at night representing that person? I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm just the lawyer, I'm just doing my job. And then another time when I was in Central Queensland, I was representing a bloke who had murdered his wife, and it was quite a bad one where he'd murdered the wife in front of the children. So it was very, there was a lot of emotion around it. And I just remember walking out of court and someone actually spat at me. And, I had people saying, oh, you should get them charged and whatever. And it's like, well, it's just not worth it. Everyone involved in that system's going through high emotion, high stress. I'm sure that person doesn't normally just walk around spitting at people, but sometimes you become, as the lawyer, the face of the bad guy.
Well, how do you deal with it? What's your perspective on it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think early in my career, I took a lot of it on. Now, I don't read comments or whatever. When I was younger, I used to go on to Facebook and you'd see the comments and they'd say, lawyer Rowan King said blah, blah, blah. And then people go, oh, I can't believe that lawyer said blah, blah. And I'd sit there and read the comments and ruminate on it. But I just don't read the comments now. So that ignorance element's kind of nice.
Be honest, Rowan, you get suspect massages to deal with it. Come on.
Cool. Yeah, it's like, oh, can you hook a brother up with Shun? So, but yeah, I think early I used to worry about it. But these days it's, I'm doing my job, and if it wasn't me, it'd be someone else doing it. And, fundamentally, people are innocent until proven guilty. So until the jury comes back and says guilty, they've got the presumption of innocence. And there's no burden on a criminal defendant to prove their innocence. There's no burden on them to prove anything.
Yes. So,
as a defence lawyer, I often explain to clients, you can sort of sit back and put your feet on the table and go, we don't have to prove anything. We just sit here and listen. And if they can prove it, they can prove it. If they can't, they can't. That's their obligation. And so, yeah, that's sort of how I rationalise it in my mind. It doesn't mean that sometimes you don't, you see cases that are quite grave and you just sort of have to, get professional assistance, see a psychologist or something.
After the fact of doing the work?
Yeah, I had this one case. It was a matter involving children, and my client had basically lied to me. But we sort of work on the basis that the relationship's so confidential. If you say you killed him and buried him over there, we can't tell anyone unless we're, there's exceptions, but that's a general rule. Like, we can't tell anyone about it. So we work on the basis our clients aren't going to lie to us. And he'd just been sort of like lying to himself mostly. Anyway, so we'd sort of unpacked all this evidence, and we'd had forensic stuff done, and, grading of the stuff that the client had sourced and involving children. And then, like for me at the time, I had quite a young daughter. So like just being exposed to that exploitation stuff, and then having a young child that's sort of a similar age to the victims, and it just sort of,
it's close.
It hit. Before I had my daughter, like, it didn't bother me at all. But I think once you have a child, you go, oh man, like that's a bit harder to deal with. And it doesn't mean that, like, I still always give clients the benefit of the doubt. But in that situation, it was like such a shut case that he was like guilty as, and he ended up admitting it like at the very end. But it was just sort of a difficult road to get to that point, and it really sort of rattled me. And I just had to just talk it out and realise, well, I'm not my client's sin. I'm not their bad behaviour. I'm not their poor decisions. I'm just there as someone to, like a doctor, if someone commits a robbery and during the robbery they get shot, the doctor still has to work on them, and it's sort of
Duty
no different.
Duty of care. What do you call that? Is it?
Well, I mean, it's not really a duty of care. It's more just like, you've got an obligation to act in your client's best interests, and you've got an obligation, even if they're not a very nice person, to do the best job you can to assist them, and that's what you're there for. And sometimes
I think the idea is that you want the law to have its day in the sun, right? So you want the full weight of the law to exact the punishment,
100%.
rather than being overly punished or under punished. It's almost like you're looking for the law to fall down.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, like when I talk to people about what I do, that's like, if you said what's the gist of what you do, like as a criminal lawyer, it's not all like suits. It's most of my day is spent trying to convince the police that they've charged the client with, like, they're guilty, but they're guilty of the thing that they're charged with is not what they're guilty of. So like a really clear example is we got a charge called enter premises and commit. And the maximum penalty for that's life imprisonment. And sometimes the police will get sick of charging someone with stealing, and they'll go, oh, enter premises and commit. And then they're exposed to like a really serious penalty. And then the premises they've entered is Woolworths, and the commit is stealing milk, So really it's a shop steal, which should be a fine. But the police are just sick of charging them, so they overcharge. And whether they do it intentionally or it's just like, oh, maybe this will get the message through or something, I'm not being critical of the police for doing that, but most of my day is spent going like, you've charged with this offence and that's excessive, and it should be reduced to this. Or if, we don't accept this point, and if we don't accept that point, then you should charge with this one. Like, for example, I had a client recently start charged with stalking, and we said, look, my client's guilty of breaching his DVO, but it's not stalking. Like, there's no continuity, there's no detriment caused to the victim, so it can't be stalking. So a lot of my day is spent just reminding, like, this is the law, and then obviously if they are guilty, so say for example it is, sometimes there's nothing nice you can say about someone, they're just a really bad person and they've just committed a crime, but they still have the right to be given the correct penalty. And so it's just reminding the judges that even though they are a horrible human being that has made some really bad decisions, they shouldn't be excessively punished for what they've done. So that's what I do most of the day, is just sort of like navigating that and then trying to get terminology around it so I can explain to a judge, when you look at the history, don't blow that out of proportion. There's still someone who had all of these things in their life that have led them to these decisions. So yeah, it's very easy when you've gone to a private school and then you've gone to a Queensland university and then you've got an honours degree in law and then you've become a barrister at your dad's barrister's chambers, and then your dad becomes a judge and then you become a judge, and then you're suddenly 60 and you've never had any adversity in your life to be like, that filthy druggo, let's send them to jail for the rest of their life. You know, so I'm not suggesting judges do that, but, you know, like we're all human, judges are human, and sometimes it's just, most of my job is just reminding them, like, this is the law, this is the penalty, this is what other judges give for this crime, and that's what we want you to do.
So you're constantly creating perspective, really.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing.
And so it's criminal law, what you practice?
Yeah, so my areas I work in are, and I don't know how I fell into it, I just sort of fell into it, but crime, domestic violence and family law, and those three areas very neatly interact.
Right.
And the scenario might be husband and wife break up, husband sends some messages to the wife goes to the police, she takes out a DVO, husband gets upset that there's now a DVO, sends a message going, I can't believe you took out a DVO, and then he's got criminal charges. So you've got the divorce, you've got the kids, you've got the property settlement, you've got the domestic violence proceedings and the criminal charges, you know, like they all sort of neatly work together. And yeah, so that's the sort of core areas. Wow. Yeah.
And so, and why did you originally want to get into that space? How did you?
Funny, actually, like I didn't want to get into those areas. It's just I feel like the universe pushed me into those areas because I've had a number of times in my life where I've tried to leave and I've just been very heavily pushed back into those areas. So like I worked at a commercial law firm in Cairns and they represented councils, and you know, one of the first jobs I remember doing, my boss, I still call him my boss because he's my first boss, and you know, we set up an airline in Papua New Guinea, and you know, there was commercial litigation involving boats that had been built in Aboriginal communities that were defective, and you know, doing all this high-end, like massive litigation, and that's where the money is. And I was like, oh sweet, you know, my boss has got me in this like lane where I'm going to be, and then it's like, oh hey, we've got this couple charged with murder. And then it's like, oh, you're representing them charged with murder. Like, oh, if you can represent them, my son's stolen some stuff, and can you represent him? And then next minute, people are coming to me for criminal matters in a commercial firm. And then, you know, I ended up getting a job with the police as a prosecutor. And so I transferred over there. Long story short, my boss sold part of his business, and he was on his way out retiring, and I thought I might, you know, grass might be greener, so I went and prosecuted for a while, and then I sort of went into the Aboriginal space, and that Aboriginal space was like very heavy. You know, initially my understanding of the role was going to be like, you know, doing separations and custody, but it ended up being very heavy in DV, and so then next minute I'm like doing hundreds of DV cases, and so and then I, you know, even when I opened my business, like, you know, I thought, oh, I'll get into commercial and whatever, and then people are like, oh, we hear you're the guy that gets kids back from child safety. We hear you're the guy that gets. So it's sort of like every time I try and build up that part of my business,
your reputation.
You'll get,
bro, whatever you've done, and even your work in family law, it's like everyone that I know who knows you now is like, go see Rowan.
Yeah.
Like that's the reputation you got. Like this is the lad.
Right.
When it comes to the law, this is the lad.
I got a phone call the other day from a small town, sort of 4 or 5 hours southwest of Brisbane, and I just said to the clients, like, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get me there.
Yep.
And they go, oh, that's okay. It's just like we jumped online and we said, who's the best lawyer? And on all these community pages, like people are dropping my name, and I didn't even, because I asked people, how do you find me? Like, you know, obviously working in marketing and stuff, you've got to know where your business is coming from. And you go, oh, your name gets dropped on Facebook groups and whatever. So, yeah, we get so much business from just people going, oh, he got my friend's kid back, or, you know, he nailed, you know, just absolutely nailed my friend's husband in court, and, you know, he paid the costs or whatever. And so we get these really cool word of mouth referrals just through like Facebook. Yeah. Which is just unreal. And
it's the best form of marketing.
So my company pays almost, I know, my company pays almost nothing on marketing because we just have such good word of mouth. But the flip side of that is that people go, oh, we want you to represent us. I go, I'm really busy, but I've got a colleague. They're like, no, we don't want them, we want you. So like, it sort of makes it hard to scale the business when you've got a good reputation, because everyone wants me. They don't want my junior lawyers, you know.
Is that part of your goals for the business? Like you want to scale?
yeah, I mean, it's all business is about making there's more to business than making a profit, but one of the main factors to determine how well your business is going, how profitable it is. And, there's only so many hours in a day that I can work. So, yeah, obviously to scale, having more lawyers would be good. But when we've had more lawyers on, they either don't have the same heart or work ethic. Like one of the things about me, I'd rather get less money and know that I've helped change the trajectory of someone's life or given that person some hope. That's more important to me than driving a fancy car. So
That's why you're stuck in this conundrum, though, too.
I was just going to say that. That's a testament to exactly what you just said. The word of mouth, the people that you have that, you obviously have somewhat connected to a community where they can trust you, and
That's it.
Your value and your price point must be, affordable to that market as well. And
yeah.
Your name's just all over it. It's just like, you need hope? Rowan King.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like a lot of people feel that they don't have hope in that space. And I feel like, I was always the person growing up who, people, if they're having a bad day, they'd come and chat to me. And I was always like the big teddy bear sort of person. And like in the friendship circles, I was the one that everyone felt comfortable talking to. And even to this day, like I'll just be like, I went on a cruise recently, you'd just be sitting there and someone would sit down, like they just approach you, sit down and then just like whole life story, So I think, we're all sort of designed different way. We've all got different skills and talents. And I think, I feel so fortunate that I have, I can use those skills and talents not only to help change people's lives, but also to make, good money. You get paid well and I get to do awesome stuff with my family and so it sort of fills that cup of like, you're doing something good, but also you can make money out of it. So
it must be so fulfilling to just believe in someone and a case so much, and then you get success, and because obviously that's going to be life-changing for them, right?
Yeah.
And on the contrary, there's probably the other side of it as well, where it probably doesn't always go your way. Not all the time, because you're such an amazing yeah. But like, how do you deal with that? Let's talk about that. Like, how do you deal with that pressure where it's like, you probably, has there been a case where you just like, you believe in someone so much, but you weren't able to help them?
Situation where, yeah, absolutely. I've had a lot of situations like that. I had this one case where it was a touching at a nightclub case, and it was caught on camera. The incident was caught on camera, and the complainant said the person that touched me inappropriately, I immediately turned around and punched them. Right now, and that person had no tattoos or anything. My client had full arm tattoos, and in the footage you can see him with his heavily tattooed arms in the air, and you see her turn around and punch him.
Right.
So, like when I'm talking to that client, I'm like, oh mate, we're on a dead set winner here. Like, it couldn't have been you. Your arms are in the air, like, you're dancing around. And she was quite well presented. She was, someone who looked, she didn't come into court like trying to ruin his life. She genuinely believed it was him that did it. But, for me, I'm like, we can't lose because your arms are in the air.
Yes.
It couldn't have been you. And the jury convicted him.
Wow.
And he went to jail for like 3 months.
Really?
He got a head sentence of 9 months, but he had to do 3 months of actual time.
Wow.
Is that like, that's heavy, right? For
that's a walk in the park, brother.
3 months for touching someone in a club.
Yeah, it was
Far out.
it was inappropriately grabbing a vagina. So
Right,
it was like,
right.
it's
Did a
not
Trump move?
Yeah, he went
Right.
full
Grab her on the
Donald.
pussy.
That's it. So, that penalty was in range, especially, for him and his history as well. Like, the jury never find out about the history, but, there was a situation where, like, in the meetings, you go, like, we can't lose. The situation I was telling you about earlier, the guy that was lying to me, like, he's someone I believed until there was a point where I fully believed his story. And that was part of what upset me about his story, was that like I fully believed him. And then we
that
got
must
some
be
data
shattering.
in from the police. Like, you may not know this, but with smartphones, the police can actually rebuild your phone and, you know, show the progression of clicks on your phone and stuff like that. So, you know, for him, he was accessing all this stuff, but he's then on Facebook, and then he's accessing stuff, and then on Facebook, and then texting his dad. So like, there's no way it couldn't have been him,
Right.
because no one else would be clicking between texting dad and then back to the child material. And so like, until I had that data, like I was believing him, and then I get that data in, and I was just like, oh man, I've just wasted like 12 months really pushing and fighting for this guy. He's just full of crap.
And so was that mid-case? You obviously got that information.
Yeah, so it's probably towards the end of the case, because once I got that information, we had nothing to work with. So the case finished very quickly, but we were like gearing up for trial.
Right.
You know.
And do you have the ability to walk away or change your mind? and
Yeah,
not
so
represent them
we
anymore?
can't just like stop helping someone because we don't like them, or we can't stop. You know, someone may appear guilty on paper and they tell us that they're not guilty. We still have to bat on. You know, for me, I'll say to clients, you know, I think that we got a difficult case here. It's going to be difficult to get up, but if you want to run it, I'm happy to run it. And I've had plenty of cases that on paper we should have lost. I had this one lady who increased her salary from $105,000 to $250,000. She's charged with fraud, and she was acquitted after the trial. Like, she increased her
How'd she
salary.
do that?
She was a,
Tell me this.
And how did she
she's
get
a
acquitted?
payroll lady, you know, like, and you go like, you're sitting down with a guy and like, hey, we're absolutely effed here, man. Like, we cannot win.
Yeah.
We cannot win. And then, you know, they go, well, they can't prove that she was acting dishonestly when she increased her salary.
Right.
Because she'd sent a text to the boss saying, oh, I've just increased my pay.
Go on then.
And he goes, oh, like pay rise, not pay rise. And
As in you wish.
Ha, 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 ha. And then, but then she's like, no, but I told him I'd increase my salary. Like, he didn't look at it, you know. And so that ran on appeal, and we got up on appeal, and she was acquitted, you know. So you see these things on paper where you go like, you increase your salary, like you're on 105 and then you increase it to 250. So the increase is more than your base salary.
Yeah.
And still
Hey, she told the boss.
she told the boss. She told the
Boss gave myself a pay rise.
Lesson learned
Pay
there from
rise.
that fella.
Yeah.
Far out.
So, you know, like, and you know, just because someone does that next time doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get acquitted. But like with that court on that day,
That's how it rolled.
you know, that's how it rolled. And a lot of it, it's a bit like that. You know, but an example, like the most fulfilling, like if you said, what's the most fulfilling case I've
That
ever
was
done?
going to be a question.
Wait there. What's the most fulfilling case you ever worked on?
Such a great question. Like, I had this one case. It involved a child safety matter. So a lot of people involved in the child safety system don't use private lawyers. But I'd done stacks of child protection law when I was up in North Queensland working in the Aboriginal space and Aboriginal communities. And I had this grandmother contact me. And when I say grandmother, she was like 45. She'd had like a 20-year-old son or 18-year-old son. The 18-year-old son had had a kid. And so the 18-year-old son and his partner were on meth and weren't capable of looking after the child, but the child had been placed with grandma who was like 40-something. And the silly rules for child safety wouldn't allow the child to be removed and placed in her care.
The grandmother.
The grandmother,
Yep.
yeah. So child safety in their infinite wisdom thought it would be a good idea to put that child in a hotel room with 24-hour care around the clock, and that was in the best interest of the child over being with its biological grandmother. And when I read the law, like I called a bunch of friends that work in that space, and I was like, hey, I want to run this argument. And they're like, oh, mate, you're stuffed. You're not going to get up on that argument. You're not going to get up. And, you know, I had to brace my client for the fact that this little kid was probably going to spend some time in this arrangement where she's in a hotel room having 24-hour care. And I remember telling the legal argument to get to that point that like just because it hadn't been litigated didn't mean it couldn't happen. And just because no judge had made an order on this pathway following the law didn't mean it couldn't happen. It's just it never happened before, and everyone's like, you're not going to win that argument. But I put this argument before a magistrate, and I remember speaking like my argument to the magistrate after the close of the evidence went for like 2.5, 3 hours. Like, it was really like a long time of talking. And I just remember the magistrate saying, look, I want to hand a decision down today, but I need some time to think about it. And we sort of sat there till 6 o'clock at night in a regional courthouse. It was a couple of hours from where I was living at the time. And I remember sitting there waiting, and the judge came in and she said, like, I fully accept Mr. King's submission that, you know, I can follow this pathway and leave the child with the grandmother. And, you know, I just remember driving out of court and I called up my colleagues and I was like, I got up, and I called the person that told me that my argument was effed, and I was like, hey, got up on that point. Like, they couldn't believe it because they'd been in court every day doing child protection. They'd never seen it happen.
Wow.
And I just remember being in tears and whatever. And I was thinking, like, that little girl went from a situation where she was 9 months old and she was going to be in foster care in a hotel room with 24-hour carers and no one actually loving her, to being now raised by her grandma. And that lady still calls me maybe once a year or sends me emails going, here's this little girl, you know, she's doing great, and, you know, thank you so much. And so, you know, for me, like, that's an example of where I've been able to use this degree and all those things that I had to do. You know, you go to law school going, you're sitting there in your exams going, oh, what am I doing, you know? Yeah. and then you actually, that pathway for her in child protection, you know, it could have led to, like, suicide, teenage pregnancy, absconding, you know, like a life of pain. And that pathway changed to living full-time with grandma and, you know, and grandma raising that kid as effectively her own, because she was old enough to still be the mother, you know. And so, yeah, that was one of the most satisfying wins I've had, because the impact was so great. And I've had heaps of cases where you've helped change the trajectory of someone's life, but for me, that's one that I just remember, you know, driving back from that regional town to where I was living at the time and just weeping, you know, like that was so satisfying.
Had you had your daughter by that stage as well?
Yeah, so I think Sophia was sort of, it was only a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So Sophia would have been about 5 or 6 at the time. So
yep.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Just thinking about having changed that trajectory, you know, like you said, people who grow up without a parent around or a grandparent or someone that they love that's familiar, you know, the data's out. Life for those people without parents around is not good.
Yeah.
So that's so good, man, that you can change trajectories of people's lives like that. That's so cool.
So it's so real too, right? Like, as you get older, I think you start to really appreciate and value life and time more. And so things like that have more weight with you. Like, when you're probably young, you don't have kids, you don't really understand that impact that you've had. But as you're getting older, you're married, you've got a family, and you see those things now reflecting back at just how important it is. Yeah. It's what an amazing thing, man. So fulfilling.
Yeah, I think because there's so much of my job that's not fulfilling, you know, like when you're in a high profile case, you know, representing someone, you know, like I had a pretty high profile case. It was a political person charged with rape, and, you know, like you're just getting hammered by the media and all that kind of stuff. And then you have a case like that, you know, those cases are few and far between where you know, like the thing that made the difference about that case was, like, child safety court's a closed courtroom. So no one, apart from me telling this story and maybe her telling her friends, like, it's never going to be in a newspaper. It's never going to be published. It's never going to be reported. So it's sort of like almost like a private little victory. Yeah. And that sort of made it better. But when you sort of getting the football star off a domestic violence charge, or, you know, it's in the newspaper, you know, Mr. King gets football star off, you know, domestic violence charge or whatever, that looks like the big win because it's in the newspaper. But for me, like, I was working through, you know, because obviously in business you have your down days, and I was working through, you know, processing, you know, should I continue with my business and whatever, and that was one of the stories that I came to as one of the reasons why I need to keep working for myself, because that was one of those cases where if I was working for someone else, my boss would probably say, you're not doing that case because you're not going to get paid to travel out to that remote community. The lady doesn't have much money. You know, that's one of those love jobs where, you know, you're probably getting paid $2 or $3 grand just to do the job that you should have been getting paid 15 or 20 grand for. So, yeah.
And to your credit, man, like I've been around you for a while now, and you do jobs. You're the most fairest on price. You should be paid way more. And I've seen you change a fair few lives now, and you do an amazing job. And I think you deserve business growth and everything that's coming your way, man, because
Appreciate it, brother.
You're a good lad.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate you.
Do you think there's any such thing as bad publicity with these cases where you cop this flack from, you know, the public?
The way that I rationalize it is that, like, any news is good news, because, like, when you're involved with representing high profile people, then the common person, like the average Joe that's going through court, is like, oh, well, if you can represent them, you can represent me. So even though you're associated with that bad news, but I think what makes me a bit different is I try and offset that by doing stuff in the community, like through sponsorship and, you know, giving back to the community. So trying to then, I suppose, generate news for my business that's not all associated with bad news and bad people, you know. So it might be like during COVID, for example, we linked up with a local church in Rockhampton, and we donated money towards funding a coffee cart just to be there for the frontline staff during COVID, and that way the nurses and doctors and staff could get free coffee all day and all night. Like in the early stages of COVID, where we weren't sure what it was going to be like, and you know, so there was a coffee cart there, and the staff at the Rockhampton Hospital getting coffee, and so giving money towards that. But then also I went down there and I'd be making coffee with a pastor there, Mark, and you know, we'd be there until, you know, 11, 12 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock in the morning, like making coffees and, you know, that sort of stuff. And then obviously not being afraid to take a photo and publish that, going, hey, you know, you see all this side of me, but this is like another part of my life that's really important, which is sort of giving back. And I feel like, you know, there's a saying like givers gain. Like I feel like if you give to anything, you really do get it back in business. So it might be as little as, you know, you got a job that you can't do, but you know someone else can do it. Just going, oh, instead of saying, oh, sorry, I can't help, like linking them up with someone else and providing that referral, because then they'll go, oh, Rowan referred me a job, and then you're at the front of their mind to give work back. And I don't do it for that reason. I just want to help the client out, make sure they get a good lawyer, because there's a few duds out there, and then they're like referring back, you know. So I think it's important to give in business, and when you do give, you definitely get back. But you need to make sure your heart's right. So when you're giving, there's no expectation. You're just giving for the sake of, here's a job for you. Like you're not expecting it back, because if
serve the client.
Yeah, and because the problem is if I go, I'm going to give a job to Denym and I'm expecting him to give one back to me, then like you're constantly thinking, oh well, he hasn't given me a job, he hasn't given me any work, he hasn't referred any work to me. Like, but you know. It's much more rewarding when you're just giving and you're not expecting to get anything back for it. When your heart's sort of aligned that way, it makes it. I think the universe or God or whatever you believe in rewards you for that when you've got the right intentions. Yeah.
How do you distinguish a case to take on from, say, a moralistic standpoint versus the business upside? Revenue?
My position is I don't care what someone's done, and I mean we're all one bad decision away from being the worst case in Queensland history, you know, like any of us, you know.
So you have no judgment
for
anyone that stands in front of you that needs your service.
Yeah,
you will give them your time, energy
100%.
And best efforts.
My main thing is, can I work with this person?
Okay.
Like, can I work with them? So if I get the feeling that they're not going to listen to me, they're not going to follow my advice, they're not going to trust me,
Right.
then I'll be like, hey, interesting case, but I'm not your guy.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's one of the joys of owning my own business, though. Like, if I was working for someone
That's what I
else,
was
you
gonna
wouldn't
say.
have that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
you
do
would-
this. And,
Yeah.
Do you do that often though? Does that happen
Yeah.
on a regular? Where you
Yeah.
look, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, it's not like every second person or whatever, but like, there's certainly cases where you've got a really interesting case, but
I don't believe you. Is that
No.
part of that synergy that you're talking about? Like, can
Yeah.
I work with this person? They're telling you this story, and it's like, fuck, I don't believe anything that's
You're
coming out
bullshit.
of your mouth.
yeah, because it's like, if, I'd almost rather the client saying, yeah, that was me breaking into the house, that was me in the footage, like, because if they did that, it would just make it a lot easier, because the problem is that what I found when you represent those people that you having communication difficulties with, or they're lying to you and whatever, what happens is when they lose the case, they're like, oh, you're crap, you're a crap lawyer. And so now I'm in a position where, I've got so much work on, I don't need any of my, like, obviously I need my clients, but like I don't need them that desperately that I can afford to say, no, I'm not taking on your matter. So it's not something that happens like every day, but definitely there's cases where I've been like, cool, interesting case, but I'm not your guy. And generally I'll be like, it's just, I don't have the availability and resources to represent you, because someone like that is going to need much more time and energy and resources than someone who has just made a bad decision and they accept it. So generally I'll be like, I'm just not available at the moment, or I'm too busy, or I don't have the resources, or, it's not something that I can assist with. Or so I'm never like, you're a guilty, hopeless person or whatever. Like, it's just, I just can't work with you. And I'll just be like, I'm not available, or I don't think I'm the right man for this job, or this sounds a bit too complex for my expertise or something, just sort of like, dress it up that way.
So do you ever have conflict, like a conflict with your personal morals and just this, I guess, like that need to serve the client?
Yeah, always, because my clients do horrible things, and
how do you,
like, I don't condone murder, for example. Like,
Yeah.
I never be like, oh, cool, Denym murdered someone, good man. Like, so in those cases where, the client has killed the other person, and the determination is, did they intentionally kill them or did they unintentionally kill them? Like, either way, they still killed them. But like, in those cases, like, I'll give you a real example. I had a junior lawyer working for me, and I get a phone call saying, oh, so-and-so's in the watch house and they've just murdered their spouse, or they just killed their spouse, and they're before the court tomorrow, and we need you to come down and see them. And so I took my junior lawyer with me, and I sat with this guy for, 2 hours just talking to him. And the conversation was along the lines of, we've got court in the morning. You have to be refused bail, because in Queensland you can't get bail for murder in the magistrate's court. It's got to go to Supreme Court. So like, there was no way he was getting out the next morning. So just saying, look, you're not getting out in the morning. You're going to go into custody. When you get into custody, keep your head down. People are going to want to talk to you about the case. Don't talk to them. You can talk to me, because everything we talk about is a secret, but you can't talk to them. If you feel like talking to someone, or you're feeling sad, you need to get in touch with a psychologist, and then linking them in with services, and then giving them advice on how to manage their prison stay, because obviously this person is stepping into jail, and I know, reading the paperwork, he's doing a minimum of 10 years from today.
Right.
Like, he's not walking out. Like, there's no chance this guy's ever getting bail. And then just trying to connect with him as a human that's made a bad decision, because this person also is never going to see his kids again, never going to, like, her family's never going to speak to him again, his family may not speak to him again, so he's got no one on his team.
Wow.
So I feel like it's really important in those situations to connect with the human behind the problem and separate the fact that they're a human that's made a bad decision, and go, you're a human that's made a horrible decision, and if you land in jail and do the right things and stay out of trouble, there's hope that you're going to get out and you might be able to reintegrate back into society and you might be able to have some future. So just encouraging them to get into like a network, and whether that's getting into a group, like a church group in prison, or getting into some kind of like trade or something. So just like they're keeping busy so that they're not getting into trouble. And then, I mean, it helps me, but it also helps them to reintegrate. So I remember spending 2 hours with this guy, and my junior lawyer sat with me, and when we left, he said to me, oh, that was really emotional. Like, I feel really emotionally drained. And I said, I just wanted you to come and experience that because, like, you get tempted to go in there and discuss the evidence and whatever, but, like, this guy just killed his spouse. He was there. He knows what he did. He knows that he's made the worst decision of his life, but he's still human. He's still, we're all one step away, whether we want to admit it or not, we're all one step away from that. And it could be me, it could be my brother, and you want to know that that person's getting the best advice, and what he needed in that moment was not, he didn't need hope he was getting out, because if I gave him any hope that he'd be getting out of jail, like his pathway that he needed in that moment was to come to terms with the fact that for the next at least 10 years, if it's manslaughter, but it was a very clear case of murder, so at least 20 years, he's going to be incarcerated, but he's going to be subject to supervision for the rest of his life. And it was just about like making sure he gets support around him so that he has some hope in the future. And, that there's people, I think it's important to remember too, like in the past, there's people that have murdered people that have gone on to be really famous, like amazing people that we worship and admire. For example, like if you ask any Christian or Jewish person about King David, like he fell in love with a woman and murdered her husband, but he's worshipped by Christians. And so like by crushing this guy who's just made a bad decision, like he could be someone that goes on to do amazing things in the future. He's just made a terrible error now. And I think that's one of the things is like when you're not exposed, because I'm exposed to stuff every day, that's the way I see it. But people that aren't exposed to that could never fathom that because they're like, they've never seen or heard of like anything like that. So they can't imagine that there's a human being behind that problem.
The natural reaction is just judgment. Like
that's
the bad thing. It's actually such a hopeful position for humanity. You actually gave me some perspective just now thinking about that. I'm like, you're right. Like my natural reaction would be, oh, fuck that guy. Like, and just judging.
But I mean, like how many times have you been at a pub and someone's knocked your drink out of your hand or someone's bumped into you and you go, man, I just really want to like knock that guy over because he's, you know what I mean? But I've had clients that have done that and the person's died and they're facing like murder.
Wow.
I guess though that they're like, that's different, right? Because it's almost there. But I think if you're plotting and you have this intention and you, I don't know, like.
Well, there's no intention in that case. I mean, in that case, it was a pretty standard situation that men find themselves in.
Right.
Husband and wife separate. The wife says, you are not seeing your kids again.
Right.
And I know for me at this table, being honest, like I've had conversations with my ex-wife where she said, if X happens, you won't see your daughter again. So like that's a pretty standard thing. Unfortunately, it's a standard thing that people say in conflict in relationships. And, but when the reality hits that that's actually happening, I'm never going to see my kids again, it can like trigger something that gets you into a dark place. But for me, I go, hey, Big D, having a bad day, can we have a chat? Hey, Adam, can we have a chat?
Yeah.
Hey, Mum, can we have a chat? But for some people that don't have that support network and the history of love, care, support, like people that don't have that, they just default to the
expression, whatever that is.
However that manifests. And so I think for me, it's just really important to, like I'm a human, so I still judge privately. Like I'm always, I'm not going to sit here and go, don't ever judge my client. Like I honestly do go, man, that's pretty messed up. But when I'm with them and when I'm working on their matter, it's like you have to separate that and come back to the fact that they're innocent until proven guilty. They don't have to prove anything. The police have to prove everything. And what evidence is there? And then just dealing with what we've got. And if the police can't prove their case, that's how the system's designed. That's the police's problem. And even if that means a murderer walks free, it's better that a murderer walks free than innocent people being held in jail. So, and if it wasn't me doing it, someone would be doing it. And I'd rather me doing it because at least I'm ethical and have morals and values and stuff than someone who doesn't have those ethics and morals and values. You know, people that are willing to hide evidence or...
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Win at all costs.
That's it, win at all costs.
Yeah.
So actually, it was interesting you went into something there before. So what advice, knowing the system, knowing, you know, what the repercussions of these events that can happen and do happen, whether it's, you know, malicious or not, what advice would you have for someone in that instance? You brought up a scenario just previously saying you'll never see your kids again or whatever that is. Like, so what advice would you have for someone that might be listening?
Yeah. So I think it's really natural to isolate yourself in Australia. And I think for me, what jumped out at me, like Denym and I went up to PNG in July last year, and everyone does everything together, right?
Yes.
But here we do everything alone. Like if I'm struggling, no one knows about it. I put a smile on, I put on my Instagram,
Yep.
you know. So I think if I'm telling someone who is going through something, like you can't do divorce alone, you can't do separation alone, you can't raise children alone. Like you need people around those children to speak into their lives as well. So I think the starting point is to get around people, and also like being real and like, you know, just being real with your friends. Like I think we get worried and scared that, oh, you know, what, I don't know. But for me, like if I'm really struggling, I know I can call Denym or Adam or any of my mates, like my close mates, and be like, I'm struggling with this and I don't know how to deal with it. And then I can get insight and wisdom from them because they may have been through it. I've also got a group of mates, like this is something I've done in my career, but I've also then done personally. I think one of the things for men, like we can solve any problem, we can do anything, and you know, we have this like, and if we can't do that, we're failing sort of thing. But like, you need to surround yourself with people above you, and like, and maybe older people or people with more experience. So in law, when I was a junior lawyer, I always surrounded myself with like mentors and people above me on the food chain, because then I had someone who could help pull me up professionally. But then when my marriage broke down, it was about getting, because my mates my age, they're all happily married, having kids and whatever, and here I am going through a divorce, you know. So I connected with this bloke who's in his 60s. He invited me to breakfast with his mates, and every Wednesday, this bunch of old guys who are all retired. And I remember going like, oh, my life's ending, my marriage is breaking down. And this one guy laughed. He's like, mate, I've been married 3 times. You'll be right. But you got 3 marriages left in you, mate.
Lad, so, you'll be right.
So, you know, just getting that different perspective, because like when you're in the moment, you're like, my marriage has ended and I'm scared about not seeing my kids, and I'm scared about losing the friendships and the family and the connections, and I'm scared about the narratives that are going out from the ex or the ex's family. Not that I had that problem, but just what I've seen. You're scared about the narratives that may be going out, and you're scared about what people might be thinking. But when you got someone who's like come out the other end, they're like, "Oh, mate, yeah, I went through that too. You know, this is how you do it. This is how you take your next step." And so you need someone literally with a torch that can just go, "Hey, look, you can step there. It's all good. You know, just take the next step and the next step and the next step." And you need to get people around you, and it needs to be not just one person. You need multiple people, because, you know, Big D might be busy, or he might be having his own problems, and then it's someone else, that can help pick up the slack. But also professionally, you need those people professionally. Like I've had situations where I go like, I just can't do this anymore. It's just too stressful. It's too soul destroying. You get bad media, or you're all over the newspaper or whatever, and you go like, you can call someone who's like 20 years down the track in the law, and they go, oh mate, I remember that happened to me. And it's like, news comes and goes, mate. There'll be a different story next day, and at least your name won't be published in the newspaper when the case goes to crap.
That's it.
So stuff like that, just to help pull you out of that rut.
Yeah.
Isolation is such a big man killer. It's like like you said, it's pervasive in Australia that we isolate ourselves away from each other.
It's because people see vulnerability as a weakness.
That's it.
And it is actually a really powerful thing, right? And naturally as a human, and I think men, or masculine energy in general, when there's someone in a vulnerable state, man or woman, you naturally want to, are you all right? Like if you see someone so distressed and vulnerable, it's so hard not to go over and just go, are you okay? Like, you're right there, lad. But we are in a culture where it's seen as weak, and but it is actually just a really powerful part of being a human. I find in the interaction and the connection with people.
It's amazing. Like I've been through divorce as well, like very similar to Rowan, very similar situation. And Rowan mentioned that we went to PNG last year, a bunch of men. We went over to this charity called I Care For You.
Mm-hmm.
And they do work with vulnerable women and vulnerable children who've been exposed to HIV. And shout out to Adam Atherton and George who fund and head up that ministry that's over there, that do that great work. But when we went over there, a bunch of us guys that went, who all been through a very similar situation, some of us have done some really hard work on recovering from that phase of our life. And then we had some other fresh guys who are just going through it.
Yeah, right.
And he almost got like a fast track of like snapping him out of that state of mind that he was in, because he had a bunch of us guys that had been through it already, who had been a bit more seasoned, that could slap him up the side of the head every now and again and say, hey bro, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. But for him, going into that trip, he was so lost and destitute. And by the end of it, he was like, okay, cool. Like this, it's going to be okay. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I've got a bunch of lads around me that's giving me hope and encouragement that it's going to be okay. And I'm not isolated anymore.
I think the thing that's really important is you if someone comes up to you and is like, oh, it's all going to be okay, like that is not helpful at all, or snap out of it. Like,
man up, you bitch.
Yeah, I mean, that's not helpful. But I think just if you have people around you, though, that have been on the journey and come out of it, then that's what gives you the hope that you go, it's so their words have a bit more power, but also too, they sort of just know what to say. So that's why I was suggesting, if you're in your early 30s and you're going through a separation and all your mates are on Facebook, or having a new kid, I'm getting married, whatever, and you're going through a separation, your mates have no idea what you're going through. So that's why I think it's important to have like older men around you, and people from different walks of life as well, because there's a lot of people with a lot of wisdom, and also too, the ones that you don't expect sometimes have the most wisdom. Like the guy who told me he's been married 3 times, like I had no idea, just no idea that was part of his journey or his life, but I respected him and loved him, and we had this 12-month history of catching up and whatever, and I didn't know that part of his life. And then to go, well, actually, he's just made some bad decisions and had some bad luck, but he's got a very happily married now, and so that sort of gives you a bit of hope.
You just dropped 3 bands of wisdom on you.
Yeah.
Boom, I've been married 3 times, it's okay.
What's the biggest takeaway or thing that you've learnt from that mentor?
So I think just like, if you're focusing on, it's very easy to focus on the bad things, but it's just important to remember the good things about yourself. That's one thing. I think, though, the things I've learnt, we sort of, you need to have a ritual to maintain a friendship with blokes. So for him, like, I get a phone call very regularly from him, and it's like weekly minimum. And it's regularly just going, we're having breakfast every Friday, you know, and just doing that, because it's just so easy to be like, oh man, I'll catch up with you, and you just never do.
Yeah. Have a
But if you
podcast
have
every
that-
fortnight.
I hope my wife's listening to this.
Yeah.
Hey, I got your back tonight.
So you just got to make it regular, because it's just easy in business and life to just go, oh, you know, we'll catch up,
mate.
and then it's like another year's past.
Absolutely.
So like just having, if we're not seeing each other, there's at least a phone call every week. And even if it's just, hey man, I'm really busy, no worries, just thinking about you, letting you know if you need to check in, I'm here. So I think the ritual is important, and we sort of get turned off from rituals like, oh, you know, is it a real friendship if I put it in my calendar to call him every week? But I know for me, like, and I hope he never listens to this, I put it in my calendar every week to go give him a call, because then that way I know that I'm giving back as well. Like, it's not just him initiating. So there's always at least a phone call.
This is your
from
mentor.
him. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Cool.
So, I think in business too, so big takeaways from that, like, I think it's really important. And one of the things I realised, it's a bit of a weird sort of connection, but I just thought of this, like, in business, like, I'm a lawyer and I've studied law, but I didn't study business. So when you're going through all this crap, like separating, then suddenly you're looking after your child primarily, you know, your kid's got all this emotional stuff that they're dealing with, they're not seeing their mum. You're trying to get back on the horse, you know, and get back out into the market with the ladies, and, you know, so, you know, you got all these things, and then you're trying to run a successful business at the same time. I remember seeing this video of Tiger Woods standing in the rain, and all the other players were inside, and he's out there in the rain just like dropping, like putting balls and getting them in every time in the rain. And then standing next to him as a coach, like telling him how to do it. I'm like, Tiger Woods has a coach. What the heck? Like, he's the world's greatest. He has a coach. And I remember thinking, like, how can I can be a great lawyer, but how can I be a great business person without a mentor or coach? And so I connected in with this bloke called Nathaniel from Outliers, and he's amazing, Outliers Consultancy. And, you know, he's like changed my business. So it's again, getting people above you and better than you and speaking into your life. Because if I didn't have that mentoring and coaching, and in that coaching space, there's a lot of quacks and a lot of people but like, he's legit in that he's been involved with making really successful people really more successful, and he's expensive, but like just getting a coach, because like if Tiger Woods needs a coach, then I need a coach, you know.
Awesome, man.
So,
I love what you just said then. Is that Outliers, the book, is that like a franchise, or is it his business?
It's his business called Outliers Consulting,
Right,
yeah.
cool.
So he's amazing. I encourage anyone, like, just even have one session with him. He's like,
I'll get his details off you, man. I love that shit. Yeah.
I actually had a session yesterday. So I've got one of our close friends that's actually in the software space, very similar to what I do in scheduling and stuff like that. And I had a session with him yesterday and got some coaching from him. So he's been there, done that, scaled a software company, and literally just had a session with him yesterday. And man, it was like a big cold slap in the face in a few areas, and a pat on the back in a few others. But it was so good just to get that tweak, that change of direction, that push in the right, you know, you need to consider this.
I won't use actual numbers, but like, if we just use hypothetical numbers, when I started seeing Nathaniel in my business, I was going through my divorce and separation, and that was quite hard. And then I've also got my daughter full-time in my care, so I'm full-time dadding and running a business. And if we just use hypothetical numbers, I was, say, making 30 grand a month, and I was dreaming of making 40 grand a month. Like, it was a dream. It was like a vision that I could never imagine making 40 grand a month. And like, next minute, like, I should be failing in my business because my life's falling apart. But then the next minute, like we're hitting 50 and then 60, then 70, then 80, then 90. And then it's like 90 a month. Like, so it's like tripled. My income's tripled when I'm dreaming about making 5 or 10 grand more. Like it's tripled in that time just by having a coach, keeping me accountable, giving me strategies to deal with the stuff that you need to deal with, and helping to reset your business. So, so I think it's one of those things that's really underrated in business and for blokes, because we know everything. I think it's important to get someone around you to keep you accountable. And then also, it's a bit like those people that are on mental health medication. They start taking the medication, they start seeing the results, and they go, I don't need the medication anymore. Like I got tempted to do that. So it's like, I'm gonna stop seeing him. I stopped seeing him for a couple of months, and then money starts going down. So
did he tweak the business, or did he tweak you?
He tweaked me. So like,
he tweaked your mindset.
For example, like I can get anyone to sign up for my services. Anyone that sits in front of me. Like, so I'll get like 99 to 100% of the people in front of me to sign up. Whereas the girls that work for me, they might get 50%, right? So people just buy into me straight away. So he's like, that's what you need to be doing in your business. And then like looking at my weakness and my, what are the things I'm not the best at? And that's like the boring administrative tasks. So it's like employing people then to do the stuff that I'm not good at, so that I can do more of the stuff that makes the money. So like one of the tasks we did was like literally like tracking everything I did in a day. And then we had to then allocate like what are things that make money and what are things that don't make money. And anything that doesn't make money just has to go. Like that needs to go to someone else. And then that way, if I'm there for 8 hours, I'm billing 8 hours because I'm not doing any admin. And when I say admin, I don't literally mean admin, but anything that doesn't bring in money. So, for example, I used to sit there and write the copy for the new receptionist, and I'd then go on Canva and create the ad, and that might take me 2 hours. So I've lost $1,100 because I'm sitting there on Canva. And I used to love doing that stuff because I'm creative and I love making that creative stuff, and I like words. So putting together an ad, I love that. But like I'm losing $1,100 because I'm sitting on Canva. Or even something as simple as like, I'll just go for a wander around Officeworks and just get some.
Your favourite place?
My favourite. Oh my God, I love Officeworks. But
Calm down.
You froths.
Literally, Denym calls me. He's like, Denym calls me. I'm at Officeworks again. It's like my
I've caught you like 5 times in
addiction. But just going to Officeworks during business
Like
hours.
me at Bunnings.
Yeah, literally. So I love gadgets. Hey, so
it's like me in Toy World. No, I'm joking.
I thought you were banned from there. Just like working through and going like, this stuff doesn't bring in money, and then that way, if you're only doing things that you're good at, make money, and then going like, what are the things that don't bring in money but you're the best at, and then like the things like going to B&I meetings and stuff like that, and just marketing in the community and networking. So those things don't make money straight away, but they're things that I'm better at than my colleagues, and I need to be doing that stuff. So I think, that was amazing. So it was just like little course corrections. But then also too, like, going into your past and going, like, I had a pretty good childhood and got amazing parents. They're still together. And, so just like, but there's things in your past that influence your future and influence like your worth, So like, if people tell you at school that you're crap and no good, then when you get into scenarios where there's like a jock in a networking meeting, you go, I'm you revert to that. So it's just like breaking out of those things and going, well, actually, I'm the best in my industry in this room, and he's the best in his industry. So actually equals, So just like working through some of that psychology to, just really take me to the next level. And so, yeah, I highly recommend anyone, like, if you're in business, even if you're not separating, like, but certainly if you're going through any trauma in your life, like, just dealing with that, because when you deal with that, like, you don't realize how much the stuff in your life and the stuff in your history impacts how you approach a business meeting or how you approach a scenario.
So did the trauma of growing up in a private all boys school sort of get triggered when you had that massage?
Yeah, it brought back memories of the boarding school. We used to have teacher come in and say, wakey, wakey, hands off snakey. And
Oh,
I was
dear.
sort of having flashbacks to the pedo teacher coming in. So I went to a school where they had the inquest into institutionalised sexual abuse, and most organisations got 1 or 2 days. And my boarding school had like 6 weeks.
Whoa, hang on a minute. Say that again. What happened?
So they had that big inquest into institutional sex abuse
Right.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I got a really good mate of mine up in Cairns, and we went to boarding school together. And we
in Sydney.
We went to school in Sydney at Knox Grammar, and one of my really good mates, he's probably one of my best mates from school, and we were chatting right through that inquest thing, because like most organisations had 1 day of court time to deal with the institutional sexual abuse, and my boarding school had like 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it's like, and then we're sitting down going, oh, we must have been ugly, we missed out. Like,
Oh, all right.
but actually, it's just, So, lots of trauma from going to one of the most elite private schools in Sydney. But that's what I'm saying. I've had a pretty good life and I've had no real trauma. But there are things in your life that, it might be as simple as, not dealing with, you're playing football, you don't get selected for a rep team.
Yep.
And someone who you know that you're better than gets selected. And that could be a political decision, but then going, well, now I'm not good enough. And when you have enough of that compounding in your life, I could have easily 2 years ago come into this going, oh, Blake's a successful podcaster and Denym's a successful business. So like I could be sitting here like this, just like, but you deal with that stuff and it will make you a better dad. It will make you a better partner. It'll make you a better businessman.
Yeah.
So I just encourage, like my main encouragement for people is to, actually do something about those triggers. And I mean, really, again, Denym's a massive influence in that, because he connected me with someone early in my separation, and then I had sort of weekly meetings with them and in the States, a psychologist in the States. And then that sort of helped trigger me to go, oh, actually, I'm getting psychology for my personal life, but how am I going to deal with the psychology element of my business? So that's how I connected with Nathaniel. And then obviously that sort of, Michael Phelps had a coach, the greatest swimmer of all time, you know. So if they've got someone tweaking their stroke and correcting them to break world records, then we need people in our lives that are going to help us calibrate and stay on track.
Did you say tweaking their stroke or stroking their tweak?
Stroking their tweak. It's not our masseuse. Watch out for that pinky.
Sneaky pinky.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I respond well to coaching, but also too, I sort of back what you're saying with like having your tribe of mates and having sort of like a ritualistic, somewhat catch up or relationship. Like it's having people around you that give you that objective perspective about stuff sometimes is so powerful, right? Because you when you're tripping on something, you are so internalized or self-centered, and you have no focus, and you speak to a mentor and they go, oh yeah, mate, that don't worry, and you go, oh fuck, and there is that hope, and they do know a pathway out or something. It just straight away you just come out of yourself, and it's like, oh yeah, right, and everything's okay again. So yeah, there's a couple of really cool things that you said in there.
It's again, I come back to that analogy. Like, it's so dark. You just need someone with a flashlight going, look, you can actually take the next step. Just because I remember having that, like, how do I wake up tomorrow? How do I open my doors tomorrow? How do I log onto my computer tomorrow? Like, so I've had those thought patterns, and like you just literally need someone to go, like, to turn on your computer, you just press the button. What's the worst thing that happens? I mean, I had this conversation with my daughter this week. It's like the reason we have anxiety is so that when we're walking through the bush, we don't get complacent and then, something jumps out and eats us. So like...
Kangaroo fox.
That's it. So like, why are we anxious about, like, I'm not actually going to die at work. I'm not going to die in that meeting. Nothing's going to kill me in that meeting. Yeah. So why am I anxious about it? Like, so I just think, someone that can give you that perspective and just sort of, clean the fog and just give you that clear sight.
Why do you think we're anxious at work? Like, what do you think about that?
I think people often go into situations thinking that they're not good enough. Like, for example, or if I'm not Joe Rogan, how can I start a podcast? Or, my daughter said to me yesterday, she's like, Dad, you're not even interesting enough to be on a podcast. Why do they want to talk to you?
Yeah.
So I think, and then you go, okay, well, that's...
Ouch.
But it's like, it would be very easy for me to be like, oh, well, I'm not interesting enough, and I've listened to some of the guests you've had on here and I'm like, wow, really interesting people, and how could I even compare? But then it's like, everyone's got different skills and talents and whatever. So again, it's just cleaning the fog and just being able to get some clear vision that, if you've got a heartbeat, you're important, and all humans are important, and we've all got different perspectives and we all see things differently. And so it's important to, I think the reason, to answer your question, the reason people get anxious is because they don't feel good enough. And that's because of the knocks in their life. Like, my wife criticizes me because I'm at work, or I work too hard, or I put more effort into work than I do to my relationship, and therefore I'm a shit husband. And if I'm a shit husband, then I'm probably shit at work. And then, I can't even keep my wife happy, so how can I keep my clients happy? So things like that, it can just snowball. And that's why it's important to have, having a coach in your life. And again, I just fully caveat the coaching thing with, like, there's so many people out there that are absolute crap. So you need to find someone who has, like, runs on the board as a mentor and coach, successful business either currently or in their past, and someone that can help you to learn, like, not just someone who's just like, I used to work at Woolies and now I'm a professional coach because I've read a book.
Oh yeah, mate.
There's
a course to become a business coach. There is, like, literally a course at TAFE or something you can go and do. I remember talking to someone going like, oh yeah, I should come and I'm actually doing a business coach course. I'll be able to come and be a client of mine. I'm just like, fucking here we go. Like,
you got to go read some book and then come back here and then try to coach me.
Oh, anyhow, but
So just finding someone with runs on the board is important. And I mean, that's what when I say runs on the board, like they've run a successful business, but same as like finding people around you that have got runs on the board.
100%, man.
You can't have any fake in your life.
Mate.
That's it. I said to someone in a SMS just recently, someone who I love dearly, I said, you need to find someone who you can talk to who's going to look you in the eye to eye, man to man, and tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because you've been seeking out people who are going to, what's that word, corroborate your story.
Stroke your ego.
Stroke your ego. You need someone who's going to look you in the eye, man to man, mano a mano, and say, listen here, lad, this is what you got going on. In love, of course.
Yeah.
But we need people who are going to tell the truth, right?
Yeah. And I recall sending Denym a message one time telling him I hate him because he did that to me, but I love him.
Yeah.
Like I hate you.
Massage.
No, not the massage, but like I remember one time he called me out.
Let it go, bro.
One time he called me out on something, and I remember being like, I hate you, but I love you. So you need people that are. It's very easy to lie to yourself. So easy to lie to yourself, and when you do that, naturally you're gonna.
I think too, like, because you get busy, right? Like, fucking how busy is everyone today?
Yeah.
And so, like, having someone with an outside perspective, just that knows you, loves you, and they're just like, so what's going on? And then they just listen to you speak. It's just like, oh, have you thought about it like this? Or they just give you that perspective, I think.
100%.
But the topics of self-talk, power of identity, I love all that shit. Like I relish that, and coaching as well. Like that's something too. I love your analogies of and talking about Tiger Woods and those guys with coaches. It's something that I've stepped into. Well, actually, when I think about it, I grew up doing heaps of like Tony Robbins self-development work from that point of view, but actual sort of like one-on-one coaching. I've only really had sort of one experience with that, and I fire and thrive with that. And but again, it is finding that right alignment with the person or the coach, and for where you're at and where you want to go, I guess. And
I think the thing with coaching too is like, again, if you think of your own children, you go, Dad, why am I not winning at the swimming carnival? We go, oh, you're only having one swimming lesson a month, and then the other kids are having 5 swimming lessons a week. You go, well, the one that has 5 lessons a week is going to be a way better swimmer than the one that has 1 a month. So you go, well, that it naturally applies. Like the more you do something, the better you're going to be, and the more effective it's going to be. With friendship, the more time you spend with each other, the better friends you're going to be. You know, if you so I think it's important to remember that to you know, and then just not missing those appointments either. Like I could easily be like, I'm too busy for those appointments, but like if it falls on a public holiday, we still meet up. If it falls on a day that I'm spending time with family, I'll go, hey, I got my call with Nathaniel, like, you know, because that's so important to my life, that relationship. And I know they pay for it, but like it's also so important for me that it makes me the best businessman, it makes me the best dad, it makes me the best partner, and helps me to recalibrate.
It is, and it's routine, right? Like we're creatures of routine. Habit. We love routine, and this could even sort of stem back to the traditions we were talking about, as far as in like the court that we were talking about in the beginning. But when you really sort of break it out, how important good habits and routines are, right? Especially when all the shit's fallen down around you around the world. Like, what do you do for yourself to have a bit of time that fills your cup? What do you do for like your health and fitness? What do you do with your family? And what are those routines that you could probably fall back on and stick to that sort of get you through that shit?
Yeah.
Is that discipline?
It is, brother.
It is, isn't it?
Man. Yeah. Well, yeah, a form of, but
even like this whole setup with our podcast, like I'm coming down on a fortnightly basis.
Yep.
It's done wonders for our friendship.
It's awesome, bro.
Yeah, it's like it's like a renaissance.
Yeah.
You know, of when we were younger.
Yeah. I love it.
And me too, brother.
Yeah.
But there was years there where I'd become so isolated in my personal life where I didn't have this, and I didn't have that routine. I didn't have lads regularly speaking into my life, you know, and, you know, when you're isolated, you're without hope. And really, that's what we're talking about. It's like when you're connected, when you're in community, when you have someone speaking into your life, you've got hope in the world. Because you know, the world is harsh. It wants to put us down. The law system sometimes wants to work against us, especially as men. We need hope, man. I love what you're saying about being an art. You're like a big Pez dispenser of hope.
Yeah, right.
People say that to me all the time.
And
like,
perspective, man. Like it's listening to you speak. It's just like you're like going, no. Just listen to this person and consider this side also, right? Like this is the reality, but also consider this, right? That's sort of what you're doing, yeah.
One thing you mentioned, Denym, was about men, like in the legal system, and it's one of the things that G's me up a little bit. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
Let's do it, man.
It G's me up because it's one of these things where my experience has not been that the legal system's against men.
Right. You taught me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it is against men.
It's not.
That it's not. Okay.
Yeah. But there's a perception out there.
Yeah.
So I came to you with this perception that the law is against me.
Yeah.
That the law is against us men.
It's against children being with dads.
Yeah.
Is that your, like, what?
I was actually going to say, give it more context. My sort of reference to that would be, you know, growing up in Dubbo, where we're from, like if a girl cried X or something like that, not that I had any personal experiences with it, but it's almost like they just take that word and over the
Like guilty before innocent.
Correct. Correct. And it's just like, no, you're the victim straight away.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced it. That's sort of a bit of hearsay of what sort of was in the community. And I haven't had anything directly affect me. But if you ask me what's my understanding and knowing of it, that's sort of what I refer to.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that like you see all the time on like you'll see these people on social media, or you'll see people picketing outside of courthouses going like, you know, rights for men or whatever. So it like, don't get me wrong, I've seen blokes stitched up, like, or tried to get stitched up, but generally the system's not against men. I can give really clear examples. Like, in that scenario, like, you know, people go, oh, well, you know, children don't go with dad, like they always go to mum. That's not the case. Like, children go where they're the safest and where they're going to be looked after the best, and sometimes that is with the dad. But like the people that I found, like my experience is, people that complain about the justice system being crap against men generally agree to something that they should not have agreed to. So, for example, the ex-partner tries to take out a DVO and they just don't go to court because they go, I've got to work that day. And then a DVO gets made and then there's consequences of that DVO being made. So
because old mate didn't turn up.
Just didn't turn up to court.
Yeah.
Right? The amount of times I've sat with someone and go, like, it says you weren't at court when this DVO was made. Because it says on the order, like, the respondent was not in court when this order was made, or the respondent was in court when this order was made. And I go, it says here that you weren't in court. Like, why weren't you in court? Oh, I had to work that day. Well, you're complaining about a DVO and you didn't even turn up to court. You know, so they're the ones that are yelling the loudest because they didn't actually bother to turn up to court.
Right.
Or the police make an application for a DVO and they go, I'll just cop it because I can't be bothered fighting it.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that's why you think the narrative is that it's against, that narrative, it's against men?
Yeah, because what happens is there's then
fight.
consequences of that like decision. So when the DVO is made, the gun licence is revoked for 5 years. They go, I didn't know that. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have agreed to the order. When the DVO is made, it can be pointed to in the family court to say, well, there's a DVO in place, so we need to protect the kids from the violence. And they go, well, no, there was no DVO, I just didn't turn up to court. You know, so like there's consequences of that decision. The other thing too is like often people will come to me going, oh, I went to court and I agreed to seeing the kids every second weekend. I go, why'd you agree to that? Oh, that's what she offered and I accepted it, but I want the kids more now. You go, but you agreed, that order goes until the kids turn 18 and you signed off that you'd only see them every second weekend. And there's no change of circumstances, so we can't reopen that case easily. So like you shouldn't have agreed. Like so again, coming back to coaching, like to make an informed decision, you need all the information. The only way to get all the information sometimes is to balls up and pay for a lawyer. If you're going and seeing, a free lawyer at a busy advice clinic, and you walk in going, I earn $200,000 a year, and I want to see you, and like they're going to be like the humans. They're not. You know, you'd hope that they'd be diligent and give you the best advice. But I've heard people come in going, oh, you know, like I work in the mines, I'm on $250,000 a year, but I went and saw the community legal centre and they told me to agree to the DVO. You go, well, like I can't imagine any lawyer just saying to agree to a DVO, but you know, maybe because you've stomped in and you're on $250,000 a year and they're seeing homeless people and you're like wasting government resources, you know, and then you've been given bad advice or you've interpreted the advice the wrong way, like. So my experience has been the people that kick and scream the most about family court being against men often agreed to something that they shouldn't have agreed to. My position is the whole point of the court system is that two people can't agree on something and the court has to make a decision. And often what happens is by agreeing, you're taking the decision out of the court's hands and you're making the decision. So sometimes by running the case, you get a better outcome than you could have come to between them. You know, and it might just be that you get 3 nights instead of 2 nights or something, but it's still a better outcome than you could have agreed to. So I think by running it, often, you know, you're getting a better outcome. The other thing too is that the only way to test the evidence is to go to trial, and people chicken out. They go, I don't want to run a trial. You know, I don't. And I go, well, you're saying she's lying or you're saying he's lying, and you can prove that they're lying. And if the judge knew that, then they could do something about it. But at the moment, there's no proof that they're actually lying. The only way to test their evidence is to go to trial. Now, the best example of getting children into the father's care was I had this Aboriginal bloke in North Queensland I was representing, and the children had been taken by the mother to Brisbane, and she was a high income earner, and she arranged for the children to go to private schools in Brisbane, and his proposal was send the kids back to North Queensland to live with him and to go to the local state school. He had seasonal work, so she earned way more money than him. The child had been quite an elite level of sport and was performing that sport at an elite private school in Brisbane. But at the end of that, and like she had money, so her lawyer is now a judge, and like her barristers also, like the lawyer's one judge and the other lawyer's another judge. So like she had like two of the best lawyers, and it's just me representing this guy without a barrister. And at the end of the case, the judge said if the kids live with dad, the kids will see mum and mum's family, but if the kids are with mum, they won't see dad and dad's family. So even though it's going to be hard to move them back, they need to go back. And they need to have a 6-month period not seeing mum, because mum had been really poisoning the kids against dad. So 6 months no seeing mum, just to reset the kids, and then mum's time can start building up, just so that the kids can reconnect with dad, because she'd taken them and dad hadn't seen them for ages. So what often happened, like what happened with him was he ran the interim hearing, the short-term hearing, the judge said, I'm not moving the kids back. Because on paper, like she'd made allegations of DV and stuff like that. But when we showed that that was all crap at the trial, that was all made up, the judge just hated the mother and just sent the kids back.
Wow.
And, you know, like, that, again, that's another case that changed the trajectory of some kids' lives. But, like, that's a case where the dad didn't accept the position he was in. He didn't accept anything that was being said. He trusted me and ran the trial. And we could have easily lost the trial and he could have lost access to his kids. But sometimes you just have to go through the process and force the court to make the decision. And often the people that are complaining about the family court being against people, they've actually consented to the orders that they're complaining about.
Right.
Like,
I mean, what you just said there, man. Sometimes you have to go through the process and force the court to make a decision. Know what you said there?
Yeah, but sometimes in life you just got to go through the process as well. Like you just got to like do something difficult that you're uncomfortable with just to actually get an outcome.
Yeah.
Like, it's difficult to get up and go to the gym, but you get fitter. You know, it's very easy to sit there eating popcorn chicken, going, I'm not losing any weight. You know, I've been to the gym in 6 months, I'm not losing any weight.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
I'm just going to grab some more water, Gento. Just got a thing here. Stay there.
You're right.
Cheer, bar, cheer.
It's gone quick, eh?
So good too, Rowan.
Yeah, man. I'm back. It does when you get out of these things. It feels like you just get so consumed in it. It's so good. I love it.
So what you're saying is
Well, I mean, here's living proof, another living proof of two men that have their kids pretty much with them full time.
That's it.
Like,
yep.
I mean, so that's why it's hard for me to sit and sympathise with people that go, oh, the family courts are against men, the courts are against men.
I think those men, though, that have had those experiences that you talk about, then go and talk to other men. And like me, I just assumed that the world was against men. Like we had, and probably not just that, but just we've got a mutual friend that's just had some accusations against them. They're in full custody of their children at the moment. This man. He was brought into child safety for an interview. He went through the first door, and the first door in child safety says equity for all, and it's all lovey and for everyone. Next door he went through is no domestic violence against women, should be tolerated, signs up on the wall everywhere. Yeah. Next door he went through the same thing. I agree with that, absolutely. But what an intimidating thing for a bloke to go through 3 doors and then sit before 2 women in child safety and get the riot act about their parenting style and their life and everything like that. And in talking to that guy, it was soul destroying, because it was like he went in so nervous and so anxious because he felt like the system, just the environment that he went into, was against him as a dad.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 ladies at child safety, I'm sure they didn't wake up in the morning going, how can I ruin this guy's life? Like, they're just doing their job too.
Of course.
So I think, like, in those situations, I try and remind people, like, again, it's just a process. Like, everyone's just doing their job and everyone's just doing their bit in the system. Like, those 2 ladies wake up in the morning going, they genuinely worry about, I've got to make a decision that could cause a child to die be sexually assaulted. If I leave the child there, it could be assaulted, it could be physically assaulted, it could be emotionally abused. So, like like we were talking about earlier with criminal stuff, like my exposure to that stuff is so much more than you guys. So for me, it's more real, than for you guys. But with them as well, like abuse of children is so much more real to them. So they naturally will see everyone as a risk until proven otherwise. So I think it's important to remember that, they might come across as difficult and against you, but they're just trying to make the best decision as well. Because again, they're answerable to people, and they can lose their job if they make a bad call, or they could have compensation if they make a bad call. But equally, a child could be harmed or killed. And, like I was involved, one of the earliest inquests I was involved in was a child safety kid that was removed from parents in circumstances where the child probably could have been with the dad. Child safety didn't place it with the dad, put him in foster care, and the kid died. And people
That's
were,
intense.
going to get hung for that.
Yeah.
But, people had to make a tough call. And that's the call they made, and they had to live with the consequences of that decision. And so, but, definitely, like the DV space, I understand why people say it's against men, because, often the police will go to a situation and they'll see, the lady is much more emotional and much more distraught. And, when we're dealing with authority, you sort of click into this mode. Like, I remember walking down the street.
Run.
I was a posh Knox boy, so you'd see a policeman and you'd straighten up, So, not you.
Pedal faster.
Hide the
John Hopper's boy.
Hide the drugs. So, I can't remember where I was going with that, but I think it's important to remember that. In the DV space, like, it's sometimes easy to, because when it comes to DV, the police need to identify, and the court needs to identify the person most in need of protection. And then obviously there's some characteristics. Men are stronger than women, and men are, generally. But that doesn't mean that men can't be victims of domestic violence. So again, it just comes down to putting all the evidence before the court. And if you can't make a decision to end the proceedings early, then the court has to make the decision. And for me, I would much rather lay all the cards out and lose. I'd rather that than agree to something I can't live with and then have to live with that decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's like all things, like we said, like you must go through something hard. You must go through the process, right? And what I'm hearing is that for men who are experiencing this sort of stuff is to go through the process. Don't shirk away from it. Don't listen to what everyone else has said. Actually run the process.
Just remember, everyone's got a job in it. So, like, it's really easy to criticise the judges or criticise the lawyers or criticise the mother or whatever. Like, I think in most cases, like, everyone's just trying to make the best decision, and sometimes people don't agree on the best decision. So just like, you're not going to win your case if you're on social media going, the judge is a fucking idiot. And I see it all the time where you get these screenshots of Facebook where people are talking shit about the judge, or, people are talking shit about the mother, or people talking shit about the legal system or whatever. And this stuff's getting handed to the judge. So if the judge sees that, they're naturally going to then be like, this guy's an idiot. Like, he's not mature enough to raise kids. And they go, I lost the case because I'm a man. You go, no, you lost the case because you're an idiot.
Dickhead.
I wanted to ask you, it seems like you've got such a well-balanced view on the system and everything we've spoken about. Is there anything you think is wrong with it? Like you said before, it's just this, how the system works. They're just doing their job. Like, is there anything you think is wrong with the system? And what is it? Like?
There's a lot wrong with the system. Like, every system's created by men, and we're like, not men, but like men and women, by people, and people have conflicts of interest. So, for example, one of the things that I was in the media about a couple of years ago was I was representing someone who had not been named because the law said that when someone's charged with sexual offences, they don't get named. And then that decision, like, we maintain that person's anonymity, and then the government changed the laws to allow people to be named. Now, that law had been in place for like 150 years, right? And the reason we have that law is so that Like, say, for example, a father's charged with sexually abusing a child. Like, say, for example, it was me charged with sexually abusing my child. I've only got one child, so you're going to know that my daughter's been abused. And then you're going to look at her differently. So I was trying to avoid that happening.
Right.
But because this person was high profile and hadn't been named, the government changed the law that had been in place for 150 years. And, like, the problem is that, like...
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we ran Supreme Court cases trying to unpack this new law, and we were in court all the time, and we ended up losing the case, and the person ended up getting named. But, you know, like, I don't agree with that. I think that was probably something that was made from a conflict of interest. Like, this person had a political background, and by naming that person, it assists with political purposes. And it gets dressed up as, you know, holding people accountable for their behaviour. But then what happens is then someone in Maroochydore is a doctor, and there's a false allegation made, and then they get named, and then, like, they get acquitted and they're found not guilty. But
still the
like,
shame that
they
comes
get the
with
shame,
it in the community.
and no one goes to the doctor's surgery anymore. Like, so you know, stuff happens which are unintended consequences of that, and so there's plenty of wrong with the system, and even like they changed the laws around. You know, I do a lot of rape cases, and they changed the laws around. I'm not going to do this justice without my phone in front of me, but
Have you got it?
It says something like, no, it's all good. It doesn't matter. It says something like, you know, if a complainant in a rape case tells an inconsistent version in court, you need to forgive them because that's what victims of rape do.
Wow.
So back in the day, we'd say
Trauma.
Yeah. So back in the day, we'd say, oh well, like, she's told 3 or 4 different versions of what happened, so you can't believe her. And the government's changed the law to go, well, people don't make this stuff up. So it makes it harder to get people acquitted of rape cases now.
Okay.
You know, so that would be an example of the law against men or whatever. Like, but again, that's just something we have to deal with. Like, and there's ways of dealing. And I've had clients acquitted despite that law coming in.
Right.
Right. So just because it's come in hasn't affected him, but it could affect other people if a jury hears that, oh, well, maybe the reason she told 7 different versions is because... And don't get me wrong, there's thousands of cases that are legitimate. I'm not talking about the legitimate cases here. I'm talking about the ones where there's stitch-ups. So, you know, in those cases, people could be wrongfully convicted. So there's plenty that could change. But I'm also not putting my hand up to get in there and change it because, like, you know, it's just such a beast, you know. Who'd want to be a politician?
Yeah, no, not me, mate. Yeah.
Could you imagine what's the incentive to change that law, like, politically? Is it...
Well, there's a big thing like the last few years with the previous Queensland government that was, you know, like, people don't lie, people don't make up complaints, and we need to make sure the law reflects that. And again, they dress it up because in Queensland the criminal code came in 1899, and they go, oh, you know, the law's over 100 years old, but that's not true because it changes regularly, it gets updated regularly. But because it says Criminal Code Act 1899, it's very easy in a newspaper article to be like, oh, the law's 100 years old and it hasn't adapted, you know. So it's very easy for that sort of narrative to come out. But, you know, like, there's really good lawyers in Queensland, much better than me, that go and advocate and, you know, send submissions in and try and stop this stuff happening. But, yeah, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, the law's perfect, but it's like anything, you know, you play cricket, there's a set of rules and you follow those rules, and someone wins and someone loses, you know, and sometimes there's a draw, but whatever rules you got, you just got to know them and work with them, and then try and, you know, like, I see myself as like an overpaid childcare worker, and like, you know, you're just trying to, like, keep this person on the right track and help them not make bad decisions until their case finishes. You know, don't tell lies, and, you know, don't
Be a good boy.
Be a good boy, you know. So it's sort of a bit like that, and then you know, you've got the set of rules, and you're just trying to make sure everything works and the rules are being followed, and just playing by those rules and making sure those rules are applying even for the person that's just murdered his wife and, you know, is getting publicly shamed in all the papers and stuff for being a horrible human. You know, that person still has rights, and, that could be your brother. So it could be my brother, it could be, anyone's brother or sister or mother or child, and you want to make sure that no matter what, those people, the rules apply to everyone equally. So it's just following the rules, basically. Learning the rules, following them.
Everyone has value.
Everyone has value. Yeah. You can't see it sometimes because they've just done something horrible. But again, come back to the King David example. That guy wouldn't be allowed in most churches or schools these days because he wouldn't have a blue card. But
That's right.
Yeah.
But he's venerated.
That's it.
Yeah.
So and I'm sure people at the time probably didn't like him that much for what he did, but then you look back and go, actually, the contribution to how we think and the things that he wrote in the Bible that helped shape our law, the stuff that he wrote in the Old Testament is contributed to how the laws have been written now that we still apply 2,000 plus years later. Today, if he was like, these are my thoughts, you go, who cares what that murderer thinks? It's like Ted Bundy telling us, how to think, or
he killed a lot of people.
Yeah. So you go, well, that person has no value, and that's because we say that they have no value. But sometimes it's the world's way. I mean, if you want to know how big stuff is, just go camping, lay on the ground at night, and look up, and you'll realise how insignificant so much of what we do is.
Yeah.
Yep. It's been a long time since I've went and laid out in the stars and had to look up and gone.
When we're up in PNG, I did it because obviously it was so dark there. They had the trampoline, remember, and just getting bitten by mozzies. But I remember one night just laying there on the trampoline because that's the best place to get the internet. But laying there on the trampoline at George's house and looking straight up and going, "Holy moly!"
That's it.
Yeah.
While you guys were all sleeping with no aircon, and I was up in my room with my bad back, sleeping in aircon.
We're in PNG, and old mate's got the only aircon. I slept on the deck, so I was outside on the deck on a mattress, and he's in an.
Your Royal Highness.
And that's because I flew up. I had a court case on, so I couldn't fly up when they flew up. I flew up a couple of days later.
Yep.
And so I got stitched up. I was sleeping on the deck.
I did one of these ones though, where I was like, just let the lads choose and go and grab their rooms, and I just moseyed on into the last room on the end. Little did we know this is the only one with the aircon.
Yeah. I would have been putting my mattress in that room, mate, over there.
Yeah, nobody did.
Yeah. Anyhow,
left me to myself.
And I wanted to ask you, we'll wrap this up shortly, but I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, good question. I could never have imagined, if you were speaking to 13, 14-year-old Rowan, I couldn't imagine I'd be where I am now.
Okay.
So I think just trying to, I don't know, I feel like all of my life experiences have led me to where I am. Like if I hadn't have gone through hardship, if I hadn't have been bullied and stuff at school, and if I hadn't have experienced those things, I wouldn't be where I am. So I'm thankful for all the experiences I've been through. But the kid that's bullying you right now still lives with his mum and dad. The kid that was bullying me in high school still lives with his mum and dad on the North Shore of Sydney. And I've got multiple law practices and multiple staff, and I'm being invited to talk to podcasts, and, politicians call me up to ask me my opinion on laws. When I was 12 years old, I'd have no idea that because you just think, oh, that guy that's bullying you, he's going to be someone big important one day, and then you realise he still lives with his mum and dad, So, it's just not that, things aren't as fatal as you imagine them when you're little. When you're little, everything's fatal. And I spent a lot of time with my daughter about this because, she's in year 7, and year 7 girls are horrible human beings. So horrible to her.
My girl's in year 8, so it's all good now.
Yeah. So, I just spent a lot of time trying to, and I'll say to her, and I think it's an important exercise to do with your kids, and something I'd do is just, write down the things, when you've done something hard and you've overcome it, because then you realise you can do hard stuff and succeed. Like, we forget about our little victories, and it's important to write them down and remember them. So, like, I made my daughter do this the other day, because she's feeling like I probably felt when I was her age, and, just write down your wins. When have you done something hard? And they're appropriate for her age. It was like, we went to Dreamworld and I didn't think I could go on the upside down roller coaster, but I went on it, and then even though it was scary and I'm not going to go on it again, I still did it.
Yeah.
So just things like that. And another one was like, she was sitting on my motorbike in the garage one day, and she fell off, and she hurt herself, and she hadn't been on my motorbike for ages. And then one day she's like, "Oh, Dad, can we go for a motorbike ride?" And I took her for a ride, and I hadn't processed that was her first time on the motorbike since she'd fallen off a couple of years earlier. Right. And she'd fallen off stationary. It's not like she'd hurt herself, but that was her first time. And one of the things she wrote down was, getting back on your motorbike. And I didn't realise that was something she was, I didn't sort of put any significance, but for her that was significant. That was her first time back on. And, so I think just reminding myself of things I did that were hard. And it might just be, saying to myself, remember when you broke your ankle in the last couple of minutes of that match, but you stayed on the field and you finished the game. That was really hard, but you did it. So you can do hard things, because I think, a lot of the things that I've had to work through is like not feeling good enough, like you don't feel good enough, or so, just reminding yourself helps you realise you can do hard stuff and succeed.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. All right. Gents, it's
2 hours.
2 hours. That
Holy
camera's
moly.
about to go. But Rowan, thanks for coming down, man.
Thanks for having
I
me,
really
mate.
appreciate you coming
Appreciate
in, mate. You've come a long way, and this was awesome chat, mate. I've learned a lot, actually. Some good takeaways. Yeah, so
Good, man.
appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Yep.
Good to
Thanks.
meet you.
Yeah,
Cheers, brother.
Likewise.
Thanks, lad.
Cheers.
Bye, Russ.